Well, it is time to travel through the Word. And you're not going to believe this, but I'm about to knock the last three out. You know how you study, but then the holidays come, and then you're preparing for the holidays and all the things. Well, all those things happen. So I'm going to do the last three because the goal was to do these in a year, and the year will be out in a couple of days. So here we go. Let's go with week 50. We had Nehemiah 10 through 13. We had Malachi, we had Job 1 through 11, Psalms 2, 29 to 99, and then we had Revelation 8 through 12. So for Nehemiah 10 through 13, we have chapter 10 was Israel's vow of faithfulness and their vow not to remarry, commingle, do business with all the things that they were charged to do a long time ago, like not to intermix with the people. Well, they had a vow of faithfulness. Okay, we're ready, God. They made a vow. We're going to do it again. We're ready. They would begin to take care of the church again with their tithes and offering, and then they would ensure that the land had a Sabbath, is what was going on. And then in Nehemiah 11, they talked about the resettling in Jerusalem, who would come, which of the members of each of the tribes would come and settle in Jerusalem. And all that was done by casting lots. And then Nehemiah 12, the priests and the Levites who went and settled in Jerusalem, they had the dedication of the wall, and then people from all around were summoned. They came for this dedication. And then Nehemiah 13, it talked about the prophet Nehemiah who further reformed the people who had slipped back into the sins of their forefathers, intermarrying like they weren't supposed to, defiling the fat Sabbath, and not taking care of the church. Nehemiah rebuked them, and then he purified the people. He purified the house of God so that it would be the way God wanted it to be. And so for me, I said, Lord, remind me that joy is a spiritual tranquility that's provided only by you. And then I said, my question for you is, you do know that when your thinking is conformed to the divine, that means to God, to his perspective, your actions will follow. So when your actions are doing something different, that means your thinking has already went that way. But when it shifts toward God, then your actions will follow that way as well. And then we had Malachi 1 through 4. Chapter 1 was about the Lord's love for Israel and the disobedience of the priests. God reminded them of his love for them and their dishonor and neglect of his house. And then Malachi 2 was a warning to the priest again, Judah's marital unfaithfulness, because here we are again. And that was about worship. When they started worshiping false idols, that's what it means when they talk about Judah's marital unfaithfulness. God warned the priests of what would happen because of how they handled their job, their role, their purpose. And Judah, the church as a whole. Okay, they're talking about Judah when they say Judah. Judah had become unfaithful in their prayers, their offerings, etc. Malachi 3 was the judgment at the Lord's coming. Talked about robbing God. That's his scripture. We all hear about all the time. Will a man rob God? Yes, you will, in tithes and offering. It talked about the righteous and the wicked. And it also talked about the return of Jesus. All right. And the other thing in chapter 3, it talked about how we have this thing about envying the prosperity of the wicked. Okay. We think they're prospering because that's what our physical eyes see. But that's not prosperity according to God. And then Malachi 4 was the day of the Lord and a final warning. For me, I said, Lord, remind me that a day is coming where you will make all things right. And my question for you is, you do realize that sometimes some of your prayers for direction are going unanswered because God sees that you are not doing anything with what you already got. The knowledge, the things, the wisdom, you're not doing anything with that right now. And then you're asking for direction. And he's saying, but right now, where you are right now, you're not spiritually prosperous right now. So why do you need to go somewhere else? So that's what that was. And then we had Job 1 through 11. And chapter 1 talked about Job and his family, how prosperous they were. And then this was Satan's first test at Job. Okay. And God said, here you go. I'll let you test him. And so Satan took all of Job's children and all of his things, all of his prosperity, as far as physical prosperity was gone. And then chapter 2, Satan, when he got permission from God, had a second test. All right. And that test was about Job's body. Because God said, okay, I'll let you bother his body. You just can't take his life. So Satan did it again. And he afflicted Job's body. And then it talked about Job's 3 friends who came and sat with him in silence for 7 days. Now, right now, it starts off looking like, man, Job got some good, faithful friends. Like they are, yes. They sat with him in his agony for 7 days. Okay. And then this is also the chapter where Job calls his wife foolish because she wants him to, curse God and just die and go on. Chapter 3, we have Job's opening speech. And basically, the point of it is he wished he had just died at birth. Chapter 4, the first friend, Eliphaz, he speaks. And he argued that Job was suffering because he sinned. Chapter 5, Eliphaz wants Job to admit, just confess your sin. Come on, man, let's go. And then chapter 6, Job replied. He replies to Eliphaz, and he said, well, first of all, I hadn't sinned. And because of the pain that I'm in, I have a right to kind of complain and moan a little bit because I'm in pain and you're not. You're just sitting here with me. Chapter 7, Job reminds Eliphaz that what Eliphaz had said to him didn't help him. So it was like, thanks for sitting here with me for 7 days like a good friend. But then the consolation that you gave me didn't help at all. Okay. And then Job went ahead and addressed what he figured the other 2 friends were going to say when it was their turn. So he addressed them all. Chapter 8, the second friend, Bildad speaks. He basically blamed the sins of Job's children and told Job, won't you just ask for mercy? Because your kids, they was a mess. And so ask for mercy and we can get rid of all this. And then chapter 9, Job replied to Bildad. And he said, Job reminded him that a person can only be justified before God if God justifies the person. All right. And then Job continues his reply to Bildad in chapter 9 and reminded him of who he was and what he had done. And at this point, Job had, Job was kind of getting into a deep emotional pit at this point. And then chapter 11, the third friend, Zophar, speaks. All right. And he was the one who was the most insensitive to Job's situation. Now, remember, these are the 3 friends that sat with him for 7 days in silence. All right. And so sometimes we think, the thing that our friends are doing, it assures us that they are great friends until they open their mouth. And then you find out the truth, or until their actions, you see their actions, and then you find out the truth. And so he felt like Job should be thankful that things weren't as bad as they could be. That was his advice. Job, they could be worse, so get over yourself. All right. And so I said, Lord, remind me that I am a mere human, that you think highly of me and you pay attention to me. All right. Because that's one of the things Job talked about. And my question for you was, when you encounter losses, is your response like Job's? He fell to the ground and worshiped God in the midst of his worst pains. That's what he did. And so then we get to Psalms. Psalms 2 was coronation of the sun. Serve the Lord with reverential awe and rejoice with trembling. Psalms 29, the voice of the Lord. The voice of the Lord above the waters. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Psalms 99, the King is holy. Let them praise your great awe-inspiring name. He is holy. And then we had, for New Testament, we had Revelation 8 through 12. Chapter 8, we get the 7th seal, the 7 trumpets, and then they kind of describe the first 4 trumpets. All right. There was a silence in heaven for a short period of time. And then it talked about the 7 angels with the 7 trumpets. The first trumpet was fire mixed with blood. 1/3 of the earth burned. The second was 1/3 of the sea became blood. The third was the great star and a wormwood which made the water bitter. And the fourth was 1/3 of the sun, stars, and moon became dark. Chapter 9, you get the 5th and 6th trumpets. The 5th was locusts that came to harm any person that didn't have the seal of God on them. Okay, so they were able to torment those people for 5 months before they could kill them. So they didn't just kill them, even though people wished they had died, but they didn't. They tormented them. And this was the first woe. All right. And then the 6th trumpet was 1/3 of the human race died by 3 plagues: fire, smoke, and sulfur. All right. And do you know, after all this, some people still didn't repent? Isn't that weird? Okay. Chapter 10. You have the mighty angel and the small scroll. All right. John at this point couldn't write what he saw, what he heard the angel say. All right. But he was told to eat the scroll, and the scroll was bitter. That has a whole meaning. Got to read chapter 10 to figure all that out. And you had the angel that had 1 foot on land and 1 foot on sea, as the angel talked. Then we get chapter 11. This is about the two witnesses, how they got martyred, and then they were resurrected, and then the seventh trumpet, because remember there were seven we talked about in chapter 8. So the two witnesses prophesied for 1,260 days. Then they got killed by the beast, and their bodies lay in the street for 3.5 days. And then guess what? They were resurrected, both of them, by the breath of God. All right. And then there was a great earthquake, okay, where 7,000 people were killed. And then at this point, that was the second woe, okay? And so you get the seventh trumpet, which was flashes of lightning, thunder, earthquake, and severe hail. I mean, it was tearing up stuff, okay? And then chapter 12, you get the woman and the child, the dragon thrown out, and then the woman persecuted. The woman with child, and the dragon was prepared to take the child. Okay, so this was symbolic of Jesus, basically. There was a war that broke out in heaven. Michael ended up fighting against the dragon. Satan was thrown to earth. The dragon tried to persecute the woman, all right, but who was given 2 wings, like a great eagle, to just do what she needed to do. And so there's a lot in Romans, a lot. I am giving you like a tip of the fingernail bit of it. But you could study Revelations. That's what I meant, Revelations. You could study Revelations for the rest of your life, okay? And still find new things afterwards. So go study Revelation. But for me, I said, Lord, remind me that you have delayed your full and final outpouring of your wrath. Thank God he's delayed it. My question for you is, you do know that today's anti-God movement in America is a harbinger of the tragic reality that was expressed in chapter 9. So what's happening today with this anti-God movement that we have going on, I'm telling you, it's just a small inkling of what happened in chapter 9. And so that was week 50, people. All right, next week, which is week 51, we have Job 12 through 27, Psalm 100, 101, and 141. And then we have Revelation 13 through 17. So that's our travels for that particular week. I know we're just now doing them, but don't worry about that. As long as we get them done before the end of the year. So those were the travels. Thanks for traveling with me. Happy traveling until next week, which is in a few minutes for me. All right. Bye.